To avenge his father's murder, the man bided his time for 5 years. He mastered an impenetrable black gold soft armor and the sinister 5 poisons technique. His plan was to slaughter his enemies and seize his sworn brother's wife and child. But he had no idea that the man whose martial arts he had crippled and cast into the Yellow River would, in the depths of despair, forge a deranged martial art powerful enough to destroy everything he had. His name was Su Kan, once the court's fiercest warrior, but his heart was never in it. He gave up the post of commander, which was all but his, to his sworn brother Yuan Lai. While he laid down his arms and returned home to live peacefully with his wife and child, he thought it was an act of brotherly loyalty, never knowing it had already planted the seeds of jealousy and hatred in Yuan Lai's heart. Yuan Lai's father had once been killed by Su Kan's father for practicing evil arts. What others called a favor, Yuan Lai saw as a blood feud that could never be erased. 5 years later, Yuan Lai returned home in glory just as Su Kan's father was celebrating his 60th birthday. He came under the guise of offering birthday wishes, but revenge was his true purpose. He dropped all pretense and, before everyone present, killed Su Kan's father in a single strike with the 5 poison claw he had trained for years. When Su Kan heard the devastating news, he was consumed with rage and drew his blade to avenge his father. But he soon realized that his blade could not pierce the black gold soft armor on Yuan Lai's body. That armor had long since been embedded inch by inch into Yuan Lai's flesh, making him impervious to blades and spears. When his saber was broken, Su Kan switched to fists and kicks. His blows were fierce, and for a moment he had the upper hand. But Yuan Lai unleashed the 5 poisons technique. Even his palm strikes carried poison, and his whole body darkened. Even Su Kan, seasoned by countless battles, made one fatal misstep. Poison seeped into his right arm, severing his meridians, and he dropped to the ground at once. Seeing Su Kan reduced to a cripple, Yuan Lai did not finish him off. What he wanted was total humiliation. He threw Su Kan into the raging Yellow River. He kidnapped Su Kan's son and took away his own sister as well, Su Kan's wife, Yuan Yin. Heartbroken and despairing, Yuan Yin leapt in after her husband. Luckily, heaven left them a way out. A wooden stake in the river stopped the couple. Yuan Yin struggled with all her strength to drag the unconscious Su Kan ashore, then used a homemade stretcher to haul him up the mountain in search of a healer. But a woman on her own soon ran out of strength. At that critical moment, Sister Yu, a gifted woman healer living in the mountains, came to their rescue, and brought them both back to her home. Under her care, Su Kan survived. But his right arm was ruined, leaving him crippled. He drowned his sorrows in drink all day and sank into despair. Yuan Yin was heartbroken. She told Su Kan that their son was still in Yuan Lai's hands, and he could not give up. For his son's sake, Su Kan found his fighting spirit again. He began putting himself through hellish training, using homemade equipment, to lift heavy weights one-handed, do handstand push-ups, and practice claw techniques against old trees, day after day. His left hand became harder than steel, able to rip away thick bark with ease. His obsession with revenge and the brutal training began to unhinge his mind. He began seeing visions, a martial deity standing atop the treetops. He pursued the figure like a madman, desperate to take the deity as his master. Every day he sought out the martial deity to challenge it, and every day he was beaten black and blue, spitting blood. But each setback only made him fiercer, and through defeat after defeat, his martial arts advanced by leaps and bounds. Yuan Yin sensed something was wrong with him and secretly followed him. But what she saw shattered her heart. There was no martial god in the woods at all, only Su Kan, acting like a madman, punching and kicking at himself, fighting the empty air. She realized her husband had lost himself to madness. She tried to bring him back, but Su Kan was lost in a hallucination, convinced he was on the verge of mastering his supreme art. In despair, Yuan Yin decided to go to her brother alone and save her son. When Su Kan finally defeated the martial god in his delusion, he rushed home in excitement, only to find the house deserted and a farewell letter left behind. He snapped awake at once. Like a madman, he spurred his horse toward the Yuan residence. By then, Yuan Yin was already standing before Yuan Lai. She tried to stab him with a hairpin, but he subdued her with ease. Just as Yuan Lai was about to violate his own sister, Su Kan burst in. Like a raging tiger, he cut down all of Yuan Lai's men. Thoroughly enraged, Yuan Lai gave the cruelest order of all: bury his own sister alive in a wooden box. To make sure the burial site stayed secret, he personally snapped the necks of 2 of his own men. In the front hall, the old enemies faced off again, and Su Kan's martial arts were no longer what they once were. He was swift enough to evade the poisonous aura of the 5 poisons art. The two battled all the way into a dry well, its bottom crawling with venomous creatures. Yuan Lai's training lair. Locked in fierce combat, neither could gain the upper hand. The two fought their way back to the surface. Su Kan knew that to break the black gold soft armor, he had to get in close. He wrapped an iron chain around his right hand to block the deadly poison in Yuan Lai's palm, while his left unleashed the dragon claw hand, tempered through endless hardship. He meant to rip open Yuan Lai's defense like stripping bark from a tree. The opening came. Su Kan blocked the poison palm with his right hand, while his left hand, fingers hooked like claws, locked into a seam of the black gold soft armor and tore with all his might. That armor, once fused with flesh and blood, was ripped straight off Yuan Lai's body. Without its protection, Yuan Lai could no longer withstand Su Kan's heavy blows, and he fell dead. But Su Kan had forgotten only Yuan Lai knew where his wife was. Father and son searched the estate like mad and finally dug up a wooden chest, but it was too late. Yuan Ing had long since stopped breathing. His wife's death utterly broke Su Kan. He and his son were reduced to beggars, drifting from place to place. In Tianjin, he ran into his former comrade Ma Qingfeng. Ma Qingfeng took him to a foreign-run fighting arena, hoping it would rekindle his fighting spirit. In the ring, the foreign fighters were outrageously arrogant, even beating a Chinese lion dancer to death. Unable to bear it any longer, Ma Qingfeng stepped up to challenge them, only to be crushed by their sheer strength. At the critical moment, Su Kan's son Feng rushed onto the platform, sinking his teeth into the boxer's thigh, only to be snatched up into the air. Hearing his son's cries, the drunken Su Kan finally moved. He stepped forward and dropped the hulking brute with a single punch. The crowd below the ring instantly erupted, but more fighters poured in. They even brought out weapons. Drunk as he was, Su Kan unleashed a style of boxing no one had ever seen before. His movements were elusive, his attacks uncanny. This was Drunken Fist, and even against many opponents, he held his own. The foreign boss flew into a rage and injected his star fighter with a special drug. The fighter's muscles bulged as he turned into a beast, battering Su Kan until he was covered in blood. Feng cried out, begging his father to surrender, but Su Kan knew he could not lose. He was fighting for the dignity of Chinese martial artists. As he fell, he seemed to see his late wife's smile. Struggling to his feet, he slowly rose as the Chinese crowd roared its support. He sprang onto the monster's shoulders, his fists raining down in a furious barrage. In the end, he smashed his opponent's skull. He won, and found a new purpose. He would pass on his martial art with his son and spread it far and wide.